Chucky the serial killer may not have looked like he's aged, but he's been around as long as most millennials. Today, we'll be exploring how a pint-sized murderer has continued to bring us big-time scares since 1988. This is why Chucky is iconic. Chucky represents the evils of consumerism. Child's Play is a cautionary tale. What if the things you worship turn on you? A message that is still relevant today, making this franchise timeless. When Don Mancini wrote the screenplay that would eventually become Child's Play, he was still a film student. His father worked in advertising, so he was exposed to the intense world of marketing at a very young age.
Madison Avenue refers to children as consumer trainees. And I discovered that as a child, and I thought, that's awful. So I was originally interested, my first impetus was I wanted to write a dark satire about how advertising affects children.
Child's Play was released in 1988 during the highly consumerist 80s. This was a time when kids' entertainment was shamelessly plugging toys. If you were an 80s baby, I would bet good money that you begged your parents for merch from My Little Pony, Thundercats, G.I. Joe, Transformers, Care Bears, or Rubik the Amazing Cube. Yeah, there was a cartoon about the Rubik's Cube. In the 2019 reboot of Child's Play, Chucky has been updated to represent smart technology. Alexa, Siri, Google Home, we've all been trained to think that these tech companies only want to make our lives easier, and we choose to ignore the ways these products can be used against us. Products will never be our friend to the end, and Chucky is here to remind us of that for decades to come. Chucky taps into our collective fear of dolls. The good guy dolls really feel like they existed in our world, don't they? That's because their design was heavily influenced by a real toy, My Buddy, which came out in 1985. But despite the popularity of dolls, there is a large amount of people who are terrified of them, including me. For that, I partially blame my babysitter who locked me in a room and forced me to watch the 1987 film Dolls. And I also blame my uncle who used to chase me around with a giant poster of Chucky until I cried. Damn, why do people love torturing me? Anyway, I know that I'm not the only one who suffers from PEDIOPHOBIA, the irrational fear of dolls. Even if you don't break out into a panic sweat when you see one, you have to admit that no matter what, they are always creepy. They look alive, but we know that they're not, and our brains simply can't process their existence, which is why sentient dolls and dummies have made excellent horror villains. Child's Play certainly wasn't the first time we've seen a doll come to life, but it was the first time we saw a fully emoting one. Chucky's face alone required 3 puppeteers to operate, one for the eyebrows, one for the eyes, and one for the mouth and lips. And don't forget about his fully articulated arms, fingers, and legs. The longer Chucky stays in the doll, the more human he becomes, and we as an audience wouldn't believe that unless he was able to move like one. The stiff-faced dolls of previous horror movies were terrifying, but Chucky took it to a whole new level. Chucky has personality. It's not easy to get people to root for a murderer, but Chucky has somehow managed to scare us and capture our hearts, even if it is with a giant steak knife. And that's because he had a distinct voice and personality. Chucky's fellow slasher film icons at the time were Michael Myers, Leatherface, and Jason. And what did they all have in common? Their faces were hidden behind masks and they never spoke. Chucky, on the other hand, was not just simply a mindless killing machine. He had facial expressions you could see and an angry voice that you could hear, voiced by Brad Dourif. It wasn't really until the 4th film, Bride of Chucky, when the franchise decided to go all in on the campiness, but even before then, Chucky was a bit of a sass. Chucky is such a fascinating and strange combination. He's a serial killer, but he's small, and he cracks jokes. We don't watch this franchise for its airtight logic. We keep coming back because we want to see the outrageous scenarios Chucky finds himself in and what he has to say about it.
What do you think?
Chucky inspired a wave of possessed doll movies, and with recent films like The Boy and the entire Annabelle series, it doesn't look like doll horror movies are ever going out of style. Especially now as AI and robots become more ubiquitous, our fear of being taken over by objects that should not be sentient is only increasing. Chucky was able to tap into that fear way back in 1988 and gave it an iconic face that will continue to haunt future generations to come. What characters, stories, or symbols do you think are iconic? We'd love to know. Make sure to follow Gamma Ray across the web.